Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing a very hardy machine. That is hardy and tough from Frankfurt. Though it may be the financial capital of Europe, it is also the sports watch capital of Germany. And we are discussing the Sinn U1S, hard black on a tegimented U-boat steel base. This is Sinn's signature diver in its most deluxe form. So 44 millimeters in diameter. The watch is 14.8 millimeters thick, lug-to-lug, just the case. It's 51 millimeters. And if we include the end links of the bracelet, then the total distance across the wrist is 54.3 millimeters with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now this is U-boat steel, which is both particularly corrosion resistant and significantly harder than standard 316 steel. So the U-boat steel is going to be in the 300 to 400 Vickers range, whereas the standard 316 is going to be in the 200 to 300 range. So this starts out harder. Now, on top of that, Sinn uses what's probably a carbon diffusion process to create its tegimented multi-micron layer, which is a very hard 1200 to 1500 Vickers treatment of the metal, and it does penetrate into the metal several microns, so it's not strictly a surface treatment. So the core here is U-boat steel. On top of that, we have a layer of tegiment, extremely hard, and then on top of that, we have a 2000 Vickers hard black coating, and Sinn now only uses the hard black coating on top of tegimented steel or titanium for a specific reason. When you have a shell that is this hard, it's like an eggshell, which is very resilient, but there's nothing but yolk underneath to support it. So if you hit an eggshell too hard, it's not that there's a lack of strength in the shell, it's that there's nothing backing it, and so it collapses. Well, when you have a super hard coating on a soft metal, you have the same problem. So by placing the hard black on a tegimented base itself on top of U-boat steel, you wind up with something that is also very resistant to fracturing and cracking. So even on blunt impact, you don't wind up getting dents and fractures, and it is extremely scratch resistant. You can drag a key set all around this metal, and the key will rub off on the metal. The metal will not rub off. You can remove that key and whatever is remaining of its residue using a pencil eraser, and I've done it. Now, the watch wears large. I'm not going to lie, this is a big timepiece. It's a 44 that wears like a 44. And when I put it on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, I could say that for me, the way to wear this would be on one of Sinn's silicone straps, which they offer. They offer wonderful fit. That said, it does fit. You could wear this watch on a 16 centimeter circumference wrist as long as you're okay with the idea of a big, stark dive watch. It's not a Calatrava. It's not discreet. Heck, it makes a Rolex Submariner look like a Rolex Cellini. This is a very bold look and very purposeful, but it will get you noticed. Now, it feels indestructible. The solidity on the wrist is second to none. Taking a quick look, you can see the lugs actually aren't out over the edge of my wrist. And while it's not super thick, nor is it super thin, it's a tweener that should fit underneath jacket cuffs. The bracelet is well made with a conforming end link that better mates it to the case. There's no daylight or gap between them. There is a slight taper down as we move towards the bracelet. Sinn builds its bracelets using hex screws because they can be torqued down tighter without risk of stripping. So they allow real solid fixture of the links without risk of stripping out the binding screws like you get with a flathead system. Now it's one thick gauge steel single fold deployant with a clamshell lock on top, and then internally you can see we have a fold out dive extension and then 3 pairs of divots with a spring bar, so you can use your strap tool to change the anchoring point of the bracelet inside the clasp. So a couple of different ways to adjust the sizing here. Use that dive extension over a dive suit, yes, but you can also use it over a thick winter sweater or coat if you want to wear your watch externally in really cold weather. Off-centered crown, it is a screw down. The watch is 1,000 meters water resistant. The off-centered crown makes this a viable ambidextrous option. Now you look externally and you can start to see that this bezel is held on using screws. This is a system used primarily by Sinn and Breitling. It's called a captive bezel, and it's more robust than what Omega or Tag or Rolex use. Those bezels can be snapped on, but on hard impact they can also be snapped off, whereas a captive bezel has to be dismantled in order to remove it. It's very tough. Have a listen. That is one of the chunkiest bezel feels and sounds you will encounter. Now, it's 60 clicks, so it's not quite as precise as 120, but really, we're splitting hairs if you're worried about the difference between this and this. The watch is remarkably legible. Day or night, what you need to see is white on black, and you can see in the dark, the luminescent index on the bezel is huge. Plus, you can see the seconds hand in the dark, which is not universal on dive watches, but should be. So you know if your watch is running in the dark. Now, very simple watch, really only has two subsidiary features. One, hacking seconds, stops the watch. Now you can set it precisely to a reference time. There's also a quick set date, so you can rapidly cycle the date should the watch run down or encounter an irregular length month. Underneath the case back, well, we may as well take a look at the case back first. There's not a whole lot to see because it's a solid case back watch, but you can see Sinn is very proud of the U1, which has been its flagship diver since 2005. You can see it's made of German U-boat steel, which actually comes from the shipyard that builds modern-day U-boats. And we have a Sellita SW220-1 inside in top grade, regulated in-house by Sinn. It's a bidirectional automatic winder based on the now open-source ETA 2824 architecture. So 4 Hz beat rate, 26 joules, bidirectional winding, 38-hour power reserve, a very tough movement that anyone anywhere who knows how to service a watch will be able to service for you. So reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of this Sinn U1S.